They told her he was dead. For 5 long years, Amelia had grieved, believing the love of her life, Captain Josh Walker, had perished on the battlefield. She had wept, mourned, and eventually forced herself to move on. She had even accepted a marriage proposal from a man who offered her stability, though not love. But fate had other plans. Because on a cold autumn evening, as she walked home through the village, she saw him standing in the shadows. Alive. But he was not the same man she had once loved. And when their eyes met, she knew, war had stolen something from him. But was love enough to bring him back? Would you fight for a lost love? Let me know in the comments. The wind howled through the quiet village streets as Amelia wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders. It was late, and she had spent the evening tending to the sick at the monastery. The war had left too many broken families, too many men who would never return. She understood loss more than most. Because she had lost Josh. The memory of him was still vivid, the way he had kissed her before leaving for war, the way he had promised to return. But he never did. Until now. A figure stood beneath the street lamp, cloaked in shadows, watching her. Her heart pounded as she froze, gripping the fabric of her dress. There was something eerily familiar about him, the broad shoulders, the way he stood, the way his stormy gray eyes locked onto hers. And then he spoke. Amelia. She staggered back, her breath catching. No. That's not possible. But it was. Josh Walker, the man she had loved, the man she had lost, was standing before her. And he was very much alive. She didn't remember how she got home that night. All she remembered was the way Josh had looked at her, like a man haunted by demons. The next day, rumors spread like wildfire. The hero of war had returned, but he was no longer the same. Josh had been taken as a prisoner of war. He had endured years of suffering, forced to fight, forced to survive. The man who had once been full of warmth and laughter was now cold, hardened, and distant. Amelia found him at the monastery, where Father Alex had given him shelter. You're alive, she whispered. He turned, his face shadowed with pain. I shouldn't be. The words sent a chill through her. You never came back, she said, her voice trembling. You left me thinking you were dead. Josh ran a hand through his disheveled hair. I wanted to come back. But when I finally escaped, I thought, maybe you'd moved on. She hesitated, guilt creeping into her chest. You have, he said before she could respond. His gaze flickered to the engagement ring on her finger. I'm too late. Her throat tightened. Yes, she was engaged. But standing in front of Josh, she felt the walls she had built around her heart start to crumble. The town welcomed Josh home as a hero, but whispers followed him everywhere. He had changed. The war had turned him into a man people feared, a man who had seen too much darkness. But Amelia saw the truth. She saw the man beneath the scars, the man who had once loved her with everything he had. One evening, she found him in the monastery garden, staring at the sky. You don't have to be alone, she said softly. He exhaled, shaking his head. I'm not the same, Amelia. I know, she whispered. But neither am I. He looked at her then, and for the first time since his return, the hardness in his eyes softened. Do you love him? Her breath caught. She should have said yes. It would have been easier. But the truth was, her heart had never stopped belonging to Josh. I thought you were dead, she whispered. I tried to move on. His jaw clenched. But you didn't. Tears burned in her eyes. No. And just like that, the war between them ended. But love was never easy. Her fiancé, a respected nobleman, refused to let her go without a fight. He confronted Josh in the village square, accusing him of ruining Amelia's life. She deserves better than a broken soldier, he spat. Josh didn't react. He simply turned to Amelia. Tell me what you want, he said, his voice quiet but firm. She had spent years making choices based on what was expected of her. But for once, she chose her heart. She stepped toward Josh, reaching for his hand. "I choose you." Not everyone approved of their love. Some said she was making a mistake, that Josh was too damaged, too lost. But Amelia knew better. She knew that love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing someone, flaws and all, and standing by them. Josh spent months rebuilding himself. The nightmares didn't disappear overnight, but with Amelia by his side, he found a reason to keep fighting. One evening, as they stood by the lake where they had once shared their first kiss, Josh took her hands. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. She smiled, brushing a scar on his cheek with her fingertips. "You deserve love, Josh. And I'll remind you of that every day." He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he'd never let go again. And this time, he wouldn't. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe.